Everyone wants to bring out bigger, more powerful gimbals. A cold war where every week it seems like there's a new gimbal that can mount FX6s, FX9s, Reds or RELXs, getting heavier and heavier, bigger payloads, more gimbal torque, 2 handles, frames, extra battery power. The little guys like us who shoot with light and mirrorless cameras, even our foes, we're getting left in the dust. But never fear, hope has arrived for content creators and budget-friendly filmmakers. This is the ZHIYUN Crane M3, an ultra-lightweight portable gimbal designed for mirrorless cameras like my Sony a6500, and even some bigger ones, as well as smartphones, action cameras, etc. It's a tiny but mighty piece of tech that creates a new class of its own, and it's here to prove that it's not the size that matters, but why you use it? How's it going? I'm Petros from LeonFilms, and for years I've been running around with my trusty DJI Ronin S, the original model. And for years, it's given me great, stable footage and a severe amount of back pain and a decent arm workout. But it has its flaws. It's big, it's bulky, and its selfie mode is utterly redundant because I'm certainly not going to be vlogging on this thing, no matter how stable the footage is. And on more than a few shoots where it's a small crew, we're moving from spot to spot, I have to limit the gear that I bring or risk like slowing down the production and bringing unwanted attention to us when we're just trying to do our jobs. I wanted a gimbal that could fit in my pocket and still hold my a6500. A light mirrorless camera by Sony that can seriously hold its own in terms of image quality. So when Wedio, a film sharing community company, reached out to me and asked me to collaborate on the review of the ZHIYUN Crane M3, I jumped at the chance. This gimbal was everything I wanted in a small package. It was small, lightweight, powerful. It even has that cool white and black stormtrooper style that reminds me of the red Komodo. Obviously I have my concerns comparing something so small to my trusty Ronin. The LCD screen on the back has 4 options, and you've no need to go into a phone app to auto-calibrate, change mode, or anything like that. It's all done in here. In the menus, you'll find several modes available here. There's follow mode, which will follow your movements smooth and steady, no matter which way you do it, tilting and panning the camera in the direction you turn the gimbal. Down, left, right, following you. Then there is pan follow, which locks the tilt, so even if you point it upwards or downwards, it stays level with your subject and will only follow your left and right pan movement. Then there's lock mode, which doesn't lock the arms, but it stops the gimbal from following you left or right or up and down. This is probably the most stable of the bunch. If you don't want any turns or tilts, it's just a straight line, then this is perfect for an accidental shifts in the camera. There's p.o.v and go mode, which are essentially the same thing from what I can tell, but from what I can tell, go is a little looser, but p.o.v will basically replicate your movements, including angular left and right rolls, designed to mimic a first-person perspective. I like to call it the Call of Duty mode. Lastly, there are portrait and vortex modes. Portrait turns the camera vertical for social media style video, Instagram, TikTok, etc. In theory, this sounds perfect. One switch and you can shoot vertical smooth footage. I tried on a couple of different sessions to see what I could do, but I found it a little bit of a struggle to get used to, because you're forced into a very awkward position, which is holding the handle horizontal, which just feels a little bit awkward and unnatural. Finally, vortex mode does the same, but it allows the ever famous 360 pan out, which is a move I love to do and looks really unique. As such, it's really only a move you can get with gimbals, and that's kind of part of why I like it. Now, my favorite feature of the Crane M3 is something I think should be put into every single gimbal that exists on the planet, and that is the balancing feature of the LCD screen. What this allows you to do is make micro adjustments to balance the gimbal once it's turned on. It gives you a visual indicator which will tell you the direction in which it's overbalanced, and you just have to adjust the axis accordingly, and your gimbal will be perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Anyway, it takes the guesswork out of balancing, and there's no need to turn it off and on. It was the first time ever I wasn't in fear of changing a lens because I had a visual indicator of how and where to balance it. It is great for pros and great for newbies as well who have literally no idea what they're doing. I've seen much more expensive gimbals than the Crane M3 that never had this feature, so my props to ZHIYUN for putting this in. A gimbal that works for beginners as much as it does for the pros. It's small size, lightweight, and has locking arms, making it great for travel and run and gun shoots. The menu is user-friendly, and of course I love the visual balancing feature. The leather carrying case is not only nice and light, but it looks great. And while the LED and microphone concepts are a little bit new, I can imagine they'll be useful for people who do interviews or vlogs. They might come in very handy. The only real downside to this gimbal happens to be in the same category as many of its pros. It's small and light, which means the footage is often great, but there are issues. Balancing heavier lenses can be harder. And I wasn't balancing a full frame camera with a 24-70 2.8 zoom lens like I have before with my Ronin, which even that struggled with. Because of its size, there's often not a lot of clearance around the camera. And so sometimes the arms block the LCD screen, especially if you don't have a flip out screen like mine, or you're trying to go into underslung mode. My OA6500 was fairly solid, especially for its size, and 95% of the footage looked great, but it does have the occasional wobble or vibration, especially with heavier payloads. When it comes to gimbals, they're an important piece of gear that for their money, they are really only two brands I'll trust implicitly. One is DJI, who make the Ronin, and the other is ZHIYUN, who really started this revolution. And the Crane M3 fills a perfect niche that, as far as I can tell, no one else has really managed yet. Small, compact, light, fits in your bag. I would say at this price point for rentals, this price point for subscriptions, the Crane M3 is well worth it and would be a great addition to any content creator's arsenal. The Crane M3 fits solidly into a niche that didn't exist before for me. This is a perfect travel gimbal. If you're going away on holiday for a week, you want to pack light, but you want to get the gear to get great shots, or you have a lot of run and gun shoots coming up, or some interviews, like when the subject is moving from one subject, or you're moving from one subject to another. I think this is the perfect gimbal for that. You can use it with a GoPro, you can use it with a smartphone. And when I first thought about that, I thought it might be a bit overkill for such small things. But when I got my hands on it and compared it to my Osmo Mobile 2, which I know isn't the newest model, but they're about the same size. And honestly, if you're going to get the extra functions and great stability, improved ergonomics, or something that feels professional for the same weight and size, I'd say get this every day. I would say the gimbal falls into beginner and advanced category. Between the features like the LED fill light, the microphone add-on, it's clear the M3 knows exactly what it's trying to be. It's not trying to be a production workhorse that will mount an ARRI Alexa to it. It is designed for content creators, for low-budget run-and-gun filmmakers, typically people who use mirrorless cameras. They can fit it in their backpack. They can get going to their next shot easily. They can fill in the light on a dark subject in an emergency, or hand a microphone to them that will feed straight into the camera with no syncing required in post. Overall, I give the ZHIYUN Crane M3 4 out of 5 stars. It's great value for money, extremely user-friendly, and while not as powerful as some of the bigger gimbals out there, it doesn't need to be. It boxes in a different weight class because it fills a niche that other gimbals simply don't. Because it doesn't need to fit into that category, it's a very specialized and surprisingly discreet gimbal aimed at content creators, smartphone shooters, GoPro shooters, shooters who use mirrorless cameras, run-and-gun video productions, vloggers, interviewers, etc. If you want to rent the Crane M3 from Wedio, try a rental or a subscription model links, which are both in the description. I'm Petros from LeonFilms, and I'm gonna go chase my big white fluffy dog around the park some more because that was fun, and I'm sure as hell not gonna bring this to do that. Have a great time out there, guys.